Welcome to episode 24 of the Pickbox Podcast. We are back again with more F1 content. So, as you guys know, the past few seasons, we've done an F1 season preview. Here's another one. It's just me and Gartrell today. How you feeling?
Pretty good. Ready for the season to start this weekend. Excited, really. So much has been leading up to this, since the last season. I was still stuck with that heartbreak, and now it's time to get back to it and see how everything unfolds.
Listen, for me, I was like, yo, you know what? It is what it is. We just got to move on because, they have admitted basically that they made a mistake because if they didn't fire Massey, that would have been them doubling down saying, nah, we were right. But clearly they've made changes to try and rectify the problem. And, we'll see if this season will be more consistently officiated. But it is what it is. That's the past. And being that the main Honda supporter, protagonist, whatever you want to call her, isn't on the show today, we don't even have to talk about last season. But who knows? She might want to talk about it in a future episode. But yeah, so
Maybe.
Yeah. So as everybody knows, there's a few changes that's happening for this season. We have a whole new set of regulations in terms of the car. So now the cars generate downforce in a different way. They're primarily aimed at working the floor or ground effects, if you want to call it, to generate the downforce. That way, hopefully, we'll get closer racing between all of the cars. Because as you guys know, previously, once the car behind got within a few seconds, all of that outwash really slowed them down. But, we're going to see if they have actually succeeded in their goals. Now, we also have the 18-inch wheels. So they're taller, big rims. They have the aero disc on it. All the wheels are supplied by BBS, which is pretty cool. It's too bad we won't actually get a chance to see the rims because of the disc, but I do think the disc looks good. Other changes, of course, we have the course cap that's really in place. So the big teams will be spending less money. We also have the wind tunnel breakdown time. So it's like a reverse sliding scale in a sense. So first place has less wind tunnel time than second, and then it just follows all the way down. So let's see, last year Haas was at the bottom. Haas has the most wind tunnel time of all the competitors. And I believe at the midway point, depending on what the standings are, they'll reset themselves, right? So then also there's a few more changes. We now have the engine freeze that will take place this weekend. So they made a change to the type of fuel that the cars run on. There's more ethanol components into the fuel this year, which allegedly has taken away some of the power that the teams had previously. What's going to happen essentially is now till 2025, the engines will be the same, but of course they can keep making upgrades for reliability purposes, and more than likely they'll try to use that to extract more performance out the engines. But if you messed up now, you're just going to have a bad time until 2026. And then let's see, what else do we have? The suspension setups have changed also. Besides Red Bull and McLaren running pull rod front suspension instead of push rod like everybody else has been running, also this whole suspension setups are a bit less complex. They're just more simple. That's something that the FIA has implemented. And yeah, I think that for the most part is all of the changes that is implemented for 2022 moving forward. Now, before the season started and before all the launches, people were concerned that the cars are going to be looking pretty much identical because of supposedly how tight the regulations are. But luckily, we've seen that older cars actually look pretty different, especially when it comes to the side pod profiles. They all kind of have like the raised nose, but that's because of the regulations. It also is to help feed the floor, which aids the whole aero philosophy. All right, so when it comes to liveries, or you can include how the cars look in general, give me your top five. What are we looking at here?
Well, I'm going to be a Mercedes fanboy, but actually, I'm going to say I'm really digging the McLaren livery this year as the top spot for me. I like the Gulf color. I think that was a nice little touch that they did in Monaco a couple times, and some special times here and there. And realistically, I think that colorway is really like just flows really really well personally. The light blue and the papaya and the black. So I think they really went above and beyond with their color scheme for this year. Um, Basically switching it up from just the straight papaya and black that they had last season, which is a little bit boring. It's kind of typical McLaren, if you ask me. So it's a nice little spice, and I like what they did with the pattern on their wheel discs. I probably would go with Aston Martin being my second favorite. I think the green looks really brilliant. It doesn't really look like a typical British racing green, which is different, especially for Aston Martin, right? Being a British manufacturer, and that kind of being like one of the first true like distinguishing colors that they've ever created. Um, and so and also just like the design of their side pods looks like pretty aggressive and really flows well with the car itself, I think. So I really like that as second. I say third probably would go to Williams. I think the blue is looking really good on that car. Um, Really, really well done, which is surprising. I mean, I know they're trying to, have a new direction with their whole team, but it's a good start. I mean, a good livery, a good looking car. Looks like it might be, a contender this year, maybe potentially for midfield, win midfield points, hopefully. And I probably would go with Mercedes just because obvious fanboy. I can't leave them out. I think that the silver arrows coming back is a nice touch. I think it does look a little aggressive. I love how they put the like that teal color from the Petronas logo like hinted throughout the car on the wing and on the front wing, as well as like the black. I think they did that really well with the hits of like neon green. They're really doing, it's like kind of funky, but it works if you've seen the car, if you know what I mean. And lastly, I kind of want to say Ferrari. I think that they did a pretty solid job like implementing the black with their livery, and instead of like a really glossy red like how they've been doing for the past I don't even know how many years, like they have a nice kind of matte finish to it, like a darker red. I couldn't even tell you the color code for it, but it just looks a little bit more, I don't know, it looks better to me than just what they've been doing for the past few years. And honestly, the rest of the field looks so similar to what they did last year. It's kind of just hard to, and obviously I'm pointing out Ferrari and Red Bull, who are the exact same livery as last year. Like no changes whatsoever went into that, which is kind of boring.
Well,
And
AlphaTauri just flipped it.
well, yeah, but same color scheme. And at the end of the day, like nothing changed about them at all. Like in terms of like this, it's basically the same. And Haas can't. I don't even think Haas can afford a livery. Let's be real. So, I mean,
Oh,
their carbon side pod vents do look really aggressive. That's cool. But personally, the white does flow well with the car, but it's just the same thing. It's like how many ways can you spin white and black? Like you can't really. And yeah, I don't know. That's my top five though. I say that pretty solid top five. Honestly, actually, one more thing.
yeah.
I actually really do like Alpine. Because I was a big fan of the pink on the car in terms of like back when well not even Renault, but back when Force India was a thing and Racing Point was a thing, and the BWT had the nice pink white livery. I think that was absolutely beautiful, and to see it coming back to the grid is cool. I think that the colorway of blue and pink definitely didn't like clashes a bit, but I'm thinking that, for maybe some of those more special races, they'll pull out like a cool pink retro livery or something like that because they have the partnership with BWT again. Or maybe just in the future, kind of get back to that pink car. I think it's odd, but like like the bright eye-catching colors are the things that make a race car look a little bit cooler to me. So I don't know. That's my two cents.
They're running pink for the first two races, then they switched to the blue and pink.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's gonna be awesome looking then. So I'll be right there watching Bahrain. Hype as heck. What about your 5?
All right, so we have some of the same stuff, but it's in a different order. So for me, easily the best livery this year is Williams. Like, yeah, you can call me biased because blue is my favorite color. I just think that livery just looks amazing. All the different shades of blue and then the real dark shades that are almost like purple. I don't know what it is, but as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, that's the one right there. That's it. Like it just looks great. We'll see, of course, if the cool color translates into speed for them. They also have like an interesting theme with their side pod that some people have talked about, but we'll talk about side pods a little bit later. But yeah, easily Williams is number 1 for me. Number 2 would be Ferrari. That matte red with the black. Again, I don't know what it is, but it just looks amazing to me. And maybe it's like the shape of the side pods too, because you got the vents and then it like swoops and stuff. Like, I don't know. That look real cool to me. I love the color.
It's like a frozen red. Yeah, it's cool.
It looks like the same color they used on their 90s F1 cars. I can't remember like the names of the 90s cars. I'm pretty sure like there's 6 something. Yeah, their naming just jumps all over the place because it'll be like F175. Then you got F 2003. Then like I said, some of the numbers in the 6s. Like there's no real consistency completely. Is this year's called like F1000 or something crazy like that?
I thought it was like something 75. Maybe I'm looking out.
Maybe this year is 75. I feel like something was like F1000, whatever. But yeah, that's number 2. Number 3, we're staying in Italy, and we're gonna go with Alfa Romeo. I don't know what it is. I see that livery, and I'm like, man, I want some pizza because it just looks so Italian, but it looks so classy and so good. I know like they ran all of testing with the camo livery. Because they
which was odd, but
yeah, like whatever. They did their livery unveiling after testing, after the first test, and it was like, okay, this is what you was holding back. This looks pretty good to me. So it was cool, but then they like barely ran any laps in testing. So that's my top 3. Number 4, I'm gonna go with Aston. I think that green that they have looks really good. Also, I kind of like the way that their side pods look. Also, with all the vents, it kind of reminds me of the Renaults from the mid 2000s, like when Alonso was winning championships in the R25 and R26. It just looks real cool to me. Like you said, that's a real interesting shade of green. And you'll probably be able to get that color, I'd imagine, on a street car. Because like why wouldn't they let you do that? Like if you got a Valkyrie and you wanted a green Valkyrie, you gotta do it. Right.
The other teams do it already, so yeah.
Yeah, so they look good. And then number 5, I'm gonna go with Mercedes. Initially, I was really hoping they stuck with the black. The W11 livery, black livery, is up there for me in terms of just how it looks, the significance behind it, all of that. I like that a lot better than the W12's livery. Like the fade to silver, I wasn't really feeling last year. But the W11 livery blacked out. I was like, okay. But they're keeping the black race suits, which I think look a lot better than the white ones. So
Yeah.
I can live with that compromise. You can make the cars silver again. The black race suits have to stay. I need a black race suit, man. Like I have to have that suit. So Toto, if you just so happen to be listening, I gotta be a junior driver, the oldest junior driver you've ever had, almost solely for the purpose of having that race suit. Because find me a person who doesn't look elite in the black Benz race suit. Bro, not just Lewis and Valtteri, but George, Grosjean, Anthony Davidson, they all look crazy elite in that race suit. So I need that. Now I needed to have my name and number 21 on the belt. But yeah, that's my top 5. I was kind of teetering between and AlphaTauri for number 5. I don't know why I really like the matte white and blue for AlphaTauri, but I think there's more to the Mercedes. The silver arrow livery than AlphaTauri's. But that's my top 5 for liveries this year. Okay, so we did mention, of course, to switch to 18-inch wheels. How do you like the way the 18s look on the car?
I don't think they look bad. I think, they're kind of reminiscent of like what a street car would have in terms of like diameter of a wheelbase, diameter of the wheel, I should say, not the base. I do wish that we would be able to see the wheels a little bit, but honestly, I don't think that it's a big compromise. I think that, the wheel covers are functional and realistically don't look all that bad, especially when the cars are in motion. Some of them have patterns on them that make them look cool while they're driving. I think personally, besides like, the different color Pirelli on the tire. Yeah, I don't think it'll be a big deal. Honestly, I'm curious to see how functional they are in terms of race conditions, because obviously, people touch people. Some of the most common contacts without a crash is like a wheel to wheel, just like rub. And like, will that make like the cover fly off? Will you lose like stability from losing that cover? I don't know. I guess we'll see when the season starts and people start crashing, but because it's inevitable. It's Formula One, let's be honest. Like you never want anyone to crash, but it's gonna happen. And so that'll be interesting. But the cars in general look good, so I think that'll be an interesting, play. I don't think there'll be like any major performance differences from switching. I think the rubber is still rubber in terms of the compound, and so how they work is just going to be pretty standard,
Well, some of the things that are interesting about it is they talk about now that it's low profile tires that now more of the suspension travel and stuff has to be handled by the suspension as opposed to having some thick tires that also influence the handling of the car. I can't remember what the notes has said from drivers about how the tires feel. They definitely said it's a different feel. It might have been a bit more snappy. And I can't remember what they said about like heat management and stuff. I think some of the things that was interesting that they talked about was obviously how they have to readjust because the wheels are bigger, it's a little bit harder to see, which is interesting. In terms of the wheel covers, I do think they look good. And I mean, I'm sure if you snap one in half, like there'll be a difference in the performance of the car. How much of a difference, we will find out because we're going to see probably in the first race, like a wheel cover is going to be broken, whatever, and you gotta see how they react with that.
Will it be a compromising factor? That's the big thing, or
Yeah,
you have to come in and pit because you don't have a wheel cover on your front left or your rear right or whatever, however it goes. But
yeah. It's always fascinating to me. Like one of the things they talked about with changing to the 18s is like you said, like they call it road relevancy because a lot more cars have 18-inch wheels than 13-inch wheels. But it's always like, how much road relevancy does F1 really have? Like I think we're
I,
kind of on the extreme scale of the relevancy. Not saying that the tech doesn't trickle down because obviously it does,
oh,
but
it does. Yeah.
I just think we're on the far edge of it as opposed to something like a GT3 car. You know,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
yeah, but it's all good. All right. So obviously everybody hopes that with the change in regulations, and this gives teams a chance to break out of their cycles. Do you think we're just going to see the same usual people at the front, or do you think there's going to be a switch up?
Well, this is a really interesting question. And I say that because we obviously got the word from Lewis that he's going to be slow this year. So they're either really effing fast or they're faster than the competition and they just don't want to pull it. Like, I think that basically he is saying, hey, we're blowing you out the water this year. That's what I don't think we'll be competing for race wins. Oh, stop it, Lewis. We know that's not your play. You know what I mean? And that's not Total's play. Y'all don't lose. Y'all don't like to lose. Yeah, y'all go for race wins every single race. So can't hear that. Can't hear that. Plus, I mean, I think Lewis is in a space where he wants to destroy Max Verstappen this year. So I think we will see some of the usual contenders toward the front. I'm thinking Ferrari is going to be a bigger contender this year for top three. Um, I think Red Bull honestly have been, in my mind, sort of quiet throughout the whole testing phase. And it seems almost like I don't know if they have like false confidence or if they're confident in the car this year or what, but like I don't know. Something about their whole testing and the car and everything seems like they won't be as competitive as they were last year. I can't put my finger on it. I can't tell you why I think that, but I just have a feeling they will not be as competitive this year. But time will tell. I think Haas will be a big upset this year in terms of in a positive way for them. I think that we will actually see some more competitiveness out of the team as a whole. Like they were very largely last or DNFs last year. And I think with K Mag back, who is actually a very good driver, I think he just had like a really shitty hand. And I'm sorry to see him go back to Haas because I think he would thrive in other teams. But you got to take what you're given in F1. There's only such limited seats. So I think that K Mag being on the team as an experienced driver with Mick, who is a less experienced driver, but still has the potential, can learn a lot from K Mag and they can kind of put something together where they're starting to get into the midfield. Because K Mag, when he was in F1, if you guys remember, was not a consistent, but he was definitely pulling like P7, P8, P6, like very midfield, like or like slightly back where you won't score points, but like 10th, like 11th, 12th, 13th, which is a lot better to say than they had last year for sure. So I think with the development that they've actually been able to input, because they basically sacked last year's car to try to put more into this year's car, and they had more time in the wind tunnel. I'm hoping they have a competitive edge. I think that Lando is going to outperform Ricardo and be in contender with Ferrari. I think it's going to be more of the same, kind of, with potentially Aston Martin being more front field competitive. They were very midfield last year. Stroll was not at his top of his game. Vettel was like pulling together points from like sixth, seventh place. So I think more of the same with a potential to have some real competition, especially from the backfield and midfield teams, for sure. But it's anyone's guess.
I mean, the way I'm looking at it, I think what'll happen is it'll be Red Bull and Mercedes, but I believe how they were essentially in their own class. I think that Ferrari and McLaren will actually make it more of a four-horse race, more so than a two-horse race. You know, because I think that both of those teams were positioned perfectly to be in an area where they have a lot more resources than some of the teams below them, you know, so that the infrastructure is already in place, and because of the regulation changes that give them more wind tunnel time, and you know, ultimately the cost cap for someone like McLaren, more so than Ferrari, comes into place to, you know, help bring them up. I think that would just more so help get them to the Mercedes and Red Bull level. So, you know, hopefully with those changes, it'll be a four-horse race. I mean, I still think probably at the end of the day, this year it'll be Mercedes versus Ferrari, more so than Mercedes versus Red Bull.
If you ask me, though, I don't think Leclerc really has what it takes. I don't. I think Carlos Sainz has a better opportunity than Leclerc at being maybe one of those contenders that goes against Hamilton, that goes against George Russell. And that dynamic is also going to be quite interesting because George Russell's going to come out of the gate thinking he has something to prove, which he does. I think, you know, he wasn't in a great place with Williams. Now he's on a team where he can contend and, you know, and did for the one race he raced with them, which was pretty insane. So we'll see if he's got, you know, really what it takes in terms of in this car. But there's just so many factors, you know, like it's hard to like say like, oh, I think this will happen, oh, I think that will happen. I think we will see a lot of more of the same. I would love to see Ferrari kind of being a contender this year in terms of like championship points, maybe like, you know, even dethroning Red Bull as like kind of like the historic second place team for the past couple of years. And so I don't know.
Well, to me, even though Carlos beat Charles last year, which was a pretty good achievement, I still think Charles is the better of the two drivers. And when it comes to battling Mercedes, I feel like he's the one that's a bit more equipped than Carlos is. That's not taking anything away from Carlos, because the man is a good driver. He's proven that. But I don't know why when I watch Charles, I feel like Charles got that extra sauce that you're looking for in a champion. Like, he's the real deal. And to me, he's kind of gotten over some of the mistakes that he was making, especially in 2020, where like he would just drive into the back of people on first laps. I'm like, as good as he is, you can't just be driving into the back of people on the first lap. Like, you know, you can't win the race on the first lap. And I understand things happen because obviously we see it all the time, like throughout the whole grid, bowling ball accidents on first laps. But it was like, come on, son, you know. But yeah, I think he's the one that has the extra sauce compared to Carlos. But then again, like, I think the vibe and the team probably changed a bit last year because Carlos just stepped in and he did his job and just see straight up beat Charles, you know. As for George, there's two ways it's going to go. Either he will be a better Bottas until Lewis retires, or he's just going to go to war. He's shown like he's willing to be a team player when when it's time to be a team player, but also
I agree.
You're
with that.
You know, I mean, you're in the top team now. If you can snag some points, get some W's, he ain't going to just bow down and you know, fall over. He's going to take that opportunity. Like, that's a dog right there. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then, of course, to me, this is going to be the passing of the guard per se. Like, obviously, Lewis only has so many years left, or at least so many years at this elite level. And I don't think he said he wants to be somebody where, you know, he's just floating around in the back. Like, I think probably once he hits the point where he starts to decline, he'll probably be done with it. And I think his contract, let's see, is it up at the end of this year or next year?
I don't know.
It's one or two. If it's not this season, his contract is up. It'll be next season. The contract is up. But once he's done, it's the George Russell show, and then it's just he's just going to be going for it because like his backup,
I guess
more than likely, like whoever's next to him probably won't be as good as he is. That's just my opinion. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. You mentioned the return of K Mag replacing Mazepin. K Mag is one of those drivers where it's like, okay, like I understand the hype, I respect it. Like to me, he's good, absolutely, but I'm not like, oh, this is God tier talent right here.
not God tier, but like he's give him credit. I think when he was in Formula One, he was definitely putting numbers on the board for Haas. Whereas the last couple seasons, it's been like,
their car has been booty the past few years. And
F1, no.
Like if your car is booty, there's nothing you can do. It's, you might have some good qualifying performances like George has the past few years, but you're not really competing for race wins. But it's funny. I was thinking about it the other day. I think K Mag is better than Hulkenberg. And people, I don't know why, but I feel like a lot of people on the Hulk hype train, and I just don't see it. Like, yeah, he did a good job in 2020 doing the random subs for Racing Point, and like that's real challenging to do what he did. But I'm also like, I'm just not seeing, the hype. He just seems like a fan favorite, which is cool. Like you could be a fan favorite, but
I mean, besides being a fan favorite, he's like, all right, let me give you a couple drivers. Esteban Ocon.
Yeah.
Right? Lance Stroll.
He has I said Ocon has a win though. He won a race.
But I know that. I mean, but like, was it I don't think that was just sheer like, I mean, there was some luck in that race. I want to say for sure. It wasn't just sheer driver ability, like I outperformed you. It was like there's a couple factors that allowed Ocon to come through and win that race, to be honest with you. But I understand the merit of having a race win. So, okay. Lance Stroll.
He has a legit pole. Hulkenberg has neither. And like his pole wasn't like, oh, you qualified second and someone got disqualified. Like he just outright beat everybody. He has a legit pole. So
fair.
Listen,
but I feel like one is not enough to define a driver. You know what I mean? Like, but think about this. Okay, say this. But my point was getting to, imagine, Latifi, Ocon, Stroll, take Kevin Magnussen out of the Haas, away from Gunther Steiner's toxic ass, and put him in the Aston Martin, put him in any other car, and he would have done way better. Way better, actually contending in the midfield, maybe even potentially a forefront every once in a while, where he's coming like maybe a podium every once in a while. I mean, like like a big gap, but like, you know what I mean? Put him in a better car, give him a better team. I think K-Mag would do 10 times better.
That's most of the grid though. Because if your car is garbage, slow cars don't win races really. They damn sure don't win championships. It's F1.
But they definitely place higher.
The car always matters more than the driver in F1. And it always will be, unfortunately. Whatever percentage you want to make it, whatever, but it's always going to be more car than driver. I'm sorry. Okay. That's just what it is. You can't do it without the car. But anyway.
Fair enough.
Back to the point. I do think K-Mag is better than Hulkenberg. I was just using Hulkenberg as an example, not to pick on him.
What about Giovinazzi?
I think K-Mag is just probably better than him too. Definitely way more aggressive than him, because Italian Jesus would just become anonymous after the first lap. Like he would have a good first few laps, and then he's just floating around.
Answer me this now, last question. And I know this is like the K-Mag show. We got to get off of this, but like K-Mag equal to Pierre Gasly, yes or no? In
No,
the AlphaTauri, in the same car,
no.
in the AlphaTauri, you don't think they have the capable of the same thing?
I think
No?
Pierre beats him.
Okay. I'm kind of on that fence too, but I think they are comparable in skill level. Somewhat. I think Pierre has
Um,
had more chance to show himself because he's been in better cars. And they're at like AlphaTauri is a solid midfield team. Solid. And even in some Q sessions, he's been in Q3. I mean, I don't know if that's just the car or him. Like you said, like the car is usually the higher factor. So, you know what I mean? I think putting K-Mag in that same car, he would potentially have the ability to make it Q3 in qualifying, you know, that type of
sure,
potential.
sure.
Fair.
I can definitely get with that. But Pierre is definitely, to me, the better driver of the two. To
Fair.
me, Pierre has some of that sauce that
Okay.
you know. That,
He does.
yeah. But yeah. So again, wasn't trying to go on a rant about K Mag and Hulkenberg. It was just like, I see the reaction that's garnered on social media when people are excited to see him back. Now, I'm not saying they're not justified in feeling that. It was just like, yes, he is good, but man, you'll seem really, really excited that he's back. Or maybe it's
Yeah.
just we're so excited that Mazepin is out of here finally.
Yeah, it's a good segue though, because we actually didn't talk about two of the drivers that are going to be on this grid coming this season. It's going to be Guan Yu Zhao, and if I'm saying that correctly, I'm sorry. And my main man Bottas, I am so happy that he's going to be the leader of this team. I think he deserves his own team. I wish it was a better team, but you have limited seats and limited people willing to give up those seats. So, or even capable of getting those seats. Honestly, I think Bottas is better than a lot of the front of the grid, personally, in terms of capability, consistency. But in his current seat, where do you think he's going to end up with this newcomer, this rookie, who has proven himself in F2, but is now in the big leagues? And we've seen people come from F2 and obviously not do well. Mazepin was a great F2 driver, but
I wouldn't
not
say
great, but
great.
good enough. Good enough. Good enough. I would say he was definitely a lot better than he was in F1. So, you know, they had potential, but they came through and they didn't perform. Mick kind of so far hasn't really been able to shine. I know the car was shit last year, but whatever. But anyway, Bottas and Zhao, how do you think they're going to fare this year?
Um, I think, especially early in the season, they're going to struggle. Like they had real
Oh yeah.
reliability issues during testing. They didn't really get that many laps in. And that's going to hurt Guan Yu Zhou more than it'll hurt Bottas. Obviously, he has a whole lot more experience in F1.
Oh yeah.
But all that Mercedes experience will definitely help Alfa Romeo in the long term. But I think initially they're really going to struggle. And it won't even necessarily be because either of them are bad drivers. It's just that the car, I don't think the car is going to hold up the way they'd like to. Like they're one of the teams I think that's still going to be on the bottom, or it might even go down further. Something tells me like Haas probably, if they play their cards right, will be able to remove themselves off the bottom of the grid, and that means somebody got to go to the bottom, and it might be Alfa Romeo. I don't really have
Yeah.
any crazy expectations for Guan Yu Zhou. Like he's good, but he wasn't even the best driver in the Alpine Academy. The best rookie driver is not even racing this year. And at least he won't be racing unless Alonso or Ocon is out, or in the off chance that Danny Rick is out and they can't get De Vries or Paul di Resta, like that's when Oscar Piastri would step in. So like again, he's not a scrub. But yeah, he was even the best driver in his academy.
Look, well, they see something in him. I think that it'll definitely be an interesting dynamic. I think Botus is very experienced. Yeah, oh yeah, bring the money in. It's always going to come for sure. But I
30
mean,
mil. Bring that 30 mil with you. Bust the pocketbook open. They'll make a seat for you. Don't worry.
yeah, I mean, that's not always the case. You still have to have some type of. I mean, just look at what's his name? Dan ticked him. He's a decent. He's got money, decent driver.
He's a hothead.
Can't control himself, and that's easily how you get out of the contending. So he's got something, Joe. I think we'll see see what he's got this season for sure. I mean, but I think Bodas brings a lot to the table. I think he will definitely have something to offer, not only Zhao, but the team itself. It will be interesting, though, because while he does have a lot of potential and a lot of experience, he doesn't have a lot of experience being the principal or the team leader in terms of driver, the number one driver. And I say that because obviously, for the past, 70, almost like how many years was he racing for Mercedes? 5 years?
Yeah, like what was it, 2017 to
I think so.
21?
So about 5 years, he was playing second seat the whole time, not being prioritized in the strategy, and oftentimes, giving up position, things like that. So now it's kind of like he has to be that aggressor. He has to be that almost Hamilton mentality. I'm wondering if he actually has it in him to be that. I mean, he's definitely proved himself when he's had to and won races, definitely gotten pole, front row. And, that was largely part to the car itself and the team he had behind him. So I'm hoping that his talent will be able to overcome maybe the shortfalls of the car and actually do well in the terms of performance. I think Bottas really deserves it. He's a great driver. He's definitely better than more than half the grid, I would say. He is getting older though. I know, he's on that decline. I think the same as, some other people on the grid. But I don't know. It's good to see him in a position where he is put first and potentially can get some midfield points for Alfa Romeo. Um, no expectations for Zhao. Hopefully he pulls a Yuki and is actually like pretty solid. That'd be fantastic for the team, I think, overall. Maybe give Williams and Albon something to fight over in the back of the grid or the middle of the grid. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
If you actually look at the numbers, both Haas statistically has had a whole lot of a better career than most people to ever step into.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And like on his day, he's just as good as basically anybody on the grid. It's just that he's been so inconsistent, and it kind of sometimes there's no explanation for why he's inconsistent, or at least they're not publicly telling us why sometimes he's so inconsistent. But I think
he's
right.
He's not publicized. Yeah, you're right. Like I'm thinking specifically the last race of the season. Why was he in like 8th place? Like that is like a track where Mercedes dominates. Like why were you not at a higher position starting on the grid?
It happens all the time. I mean, look when him and George collided at Imola, like, hold up, you were about to get passed by George in a Williams under like normal circumstances.
Well, I would like to say that was not. I think that was definitely George's fault, that crash, personally. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, for that, I'm not necessarily talking about who's to blame for the crash. I'm talking about him being in that position where he can be hit by George. Because like he wasn't supposed to be anywhere near back there. He was supposed to be way up the grid. So that's what I meant, more so than who is to blame for them having a crash.
Fair, yeah. Shouldn't have been in the position in the first place. I get you.
Yeah, exactly. So keeping on the theme of of comebacks, we have Mary's boy, Alex Albon, back on the scene after a year of doing some sim work for Red Bull and also running in DTM.
Yeah.
He's reunited with his old F2 teammate, Nicholas Latifi, who I think he will easily beat.
Yeah.
Again. But what expectations do you have for him?
Well, to be honest, right? Albon came into F1 on one of the biggest teams there is, right? And there has been, right? And basically was unable to perform. The car was not the problem. The car that year was for all intents and purposes great. Basically just, a few ticks off of being the car that won the championship last season. So my thing is the pressure going to get to him how it got to him in 2020? Because he's definitely in a notably lower performing car, right? When it comes to Red Bull versus Williams. Is him potentially not scoring points or potentially crashing, and maybe it might not be his fault. He's going to be towards the middle back of the grid where unfortunately most of the crashes happen. Will that eat at his confidence? Will that basically deter him from being as good of a driver as he can be? Like, he definitely has race win potential, but that was in a good car. So I'm thinking he comes back into F1. He stays in F1 because of where he's come from, but not because he'll be like putting up any major points or any major victories for Williams this season. It's definitely a step in the right direction for Williams as a team, but for him, like, coming back and being this like comeback kid almost type of thing, I don't think that's what we're going to see from Albon this year. There's going to be some adjustment. He hasn't been in the car for a year, and now it's a totally different car, and it's not as fast of a car or as well built of a car because of the budget cap that they have, and Williams is already struggling.
At least so we think it won't be as good as
at least we think. We'll see when the lights go out on Sunday, but if it even stacks up. But I don't think it's gonna be anything crazy. I think it's gonna be midfield struggles, the midfield blues for Albon this season.
Okay. I'm always so conflicted with Red Bull. Just putting the bias to the side for a second, because it's like, all right, they are good at giving opportunity, but they are extremely quick to pull the rug from under you if
Also true.
You're performing. And at times it's like, okay, like, so for example, I'm glad that Yuki was able to get another season because it wasn't looking too optimistic at some points of the year. But it's like, he's a rookie. You have to give people time to develop. But with Red Bull, it's kind of like, what can you do for us now? It seems like the only person who is above all this is Max. And
when he came into it, yeah, he wasn't as great as he is now.
Yeah, and they keep talking about, are the cars designed more so to fit his driving style, and he's the only one who can drive the car, or is it something else? Is it just something else? That, of course, I don't know. Might not ever get that answer. I think he'll do fine for the team. I'm not really expecting anything extraordinary, but what I do think he will be is consistent. And I think he will consistently beat Nicholas Latifi. He will definitely be consistent in that. But yeah, I mean, okay, I said what I said. Like, he'll be consistent, and we'll see where his career goes from here. All right. So, in terms of who's winning the championship, we're on the same page.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah.
All right, everybody
It's
heard
gonna
it
be
here.
Lewis.
Yep.
Lewis is gonna
Jesus
win.
wins yet again, and possibly rise off into the sunset. Who knows?
I hope so. Honestly, that's what I'm hoping. I think eighth win. I think retire is the greatest to ever do it. Arguably with Schumacher, whatever. You can tie them if you want. 8 is still more than 7 if he gets it. So, but yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I hope that's the case. Kind of pass the torch and give someone get someone else backed in terms of fans and stuff like that. Maybe George, maybe someone else. Who knows? We'll see.
Listen, man, I'm walking right across the garage. Like those are some of my favorites on the grid. I mean, like Alonso is my second favorite driver. But yeah, like George is up there for me. So once Lewis and Fernando are out of there, we going to Britain. Well, so we're going to stay in Britain. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just interested to see like how this very small side pod car works. I mean, according to what people are saying in testing, or as the car last year looked, it didn't look particularly nice to drive, but also it's testing, so you can't even come to full conclusions because everybody is hiding some performance and some of the things that like all of the teams probably could do to go faster, they won't necessarily. And you also don't even necessarily know all of their run plans. Like you don't always know how much gas they have in the car. You know what tires they're using. But everybody kind of thinks they might have the sandbags on as usual, and they just might.
I hope so.
They always put on we think such and such is looking strong this year. Then they just come and smack the field up.
That's true. We'll see how it plays out. I think Mercedes, they got it. And I think they have some things under their sleeve that a lot of people don't see coming. They always seem to do that. They had the forget what it was called with the steering wheel. DOS. Yep. Everybody was like, the heck is that? And it was like illegal protest. So many protests in a single day. Is like, we don't think that's legal. But they always got something up their sleeve. And I think that the side pod thing was definitely something that they probably capitalized on, especially with their low wind tunnel time. Who knows? They showed up to test 1. Test 2 was a totally different car. And now they're saying, oh, we don't even know if we're getting race wins. And it's like, you got to watch people like that. That's like shifty. I don't know. We'll see. But
well, what I really want to see, and is not just from them, but all of the teams, is how do they deal with the porpoising?
yeah.
Are they just going to take some downforce off? Are they going to raise the car? I want to see how they deal with this because it seems like all of the teams basically was dealing with it in some shape or form in both tests. And obviously it was only like a week turnaround from the Bahrain test to this weekend, the Bahrain Grand Prix. So of course, they're going to fly in all the extra parts and stuff for the updates. But I'm wondering, like, if we see the cars porpoising the same way they were, or at least even if it's a little less, still porpoising during practice, like, what are they going to do? Because you can't really like drive the car like that. I mean, you're going to have a headache before the race is over.
Yeah. I think a lot of the teams are hiding what their plans are to counteract the porpoising, because once you seem to, testing is so fluent and like everyone's looking and trying to spot and figure out ways that they're making changes, and everybody's got eyes on everybody else's car. It's literally it's going to happen. So one person's not porpoising on a flying lap. What did they do different? And they start trying to get specs of the car. What do they do? Like what's different here? What's different here? And they, and I think that no one's going to show their ace in the hole before it's time to go all in, so to speak. And so we'll see how, when it comes to Bahrain, how how that turns out. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that pretty much concludes our 2022 season preview. We probably will do some race reviews throughout the season. It's gonna be just to keep it interesting, but it has to be an interesting race for us to do it. We're not just going to review a snore fest. Ain't nothing to talk about. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the order is when things come in. Of course, the cars will continue to get upgraded throughout the season. So how you start isn't how you finish necessarily, unless you were Haas last year. And yeah, we're going to see who has stepped their game up. We're going to see who has dropped the ball, because somebody has gotten it right and someone damn sure has gotten it wrong. But all right, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for listening. Let us know in the comments below, who do you think is going to win both the drivers and constructors championship. This is the Pit Box Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys soon.